me hand over to Alejandra Rivera, the Global Program Manager for the Built Environment at the Institute for Human Rights and Business, to lead this panel and introduce us to the wonderful woman sitting with her. Alejandra, over to you.
Thank you so much, Katrina. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you all for the invitation. So good afternoon, everybody. I would like to start this roundup over here with these wonderful participants. So I'm honored to be here. So maybe if you can start introducing yourself and just tell us explain how climate resistant, resilience, and adaptation relates to your work. Maybe in 1 minute, really quick. So I'll start with you, Maria.
Great. Hello, everyone. My name is Maria Aguilar. I'm from Colombia. I'm one of the youth fellows for resilience at the UN High-Level Climate Champions team. And basically what I'm doing is support amplifying the stories on the ground. The resilience team has the Race to Resilience campaign, and we have a very ambitious goal, which is raising or building resilience and supporting that for 4 billion people by 2030. So I think at the core of adaptation and building resilience is the people on the ground, so we're trying to highlight their voices. That's a big part of it.
Okay, yeah. Great, thank you so much. Now we go with Uli.
Hello, everybody. Thank you. I'm very glad to be here. I'm Uli. Yeah, that's my name. I'm from Big Field, born and raised. It's a new neighborhood in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And there we have like 49% of the population. And we don't have the resource and the public policies that we need. So that's why I became an activist and graduate in public management. And now I work with social projects to understand how you can go work together and collaborate with youth, black and poor people, because that's the reason and that's the people are more impacted. Nowadays, I'm project coordinator at Clima de Eleição. It's like election climate. It is a joke in Brazil, like clima is like vibes, so we make this joke. And we are trying in work in two fronts to construct public policies in climate and social environment. So that's it. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nasra Nanda. I am the CEO and ESG lead at the Kenya Green Building Society, where our aim and focus, especially as an established member of the World Green Building Council, we push for sustainability within the built environment. And we do this through our advocacy work, where we work with key stakeholders to push policy to ensure that we are catering to not just going green from the natural resources perspective, but we also want to expand the definition of what environment means, which essentially to me is also focusing on the communities which are affected by our actions as we build. And lastly, we also touch on the governance issues around that. So we want to make sure that our people are doing well and living in buildings that are safe, green, and also efficient. My other role, or my other hat, is that I'm also a member of County Assembly at the Nairobi City County Assembly. And I guess through that platform, as a politician, which I don't like to say, my aim is also to ensure that we represent these communities in a way that also reflects sustainability. So to touch on why climate adaptation and resilience is important, for those of you who don't know, Kenya is the climate change champion for Africa, and one of our key pillars through the new government is ensuring green, affordable housing, and also looking at climate change and climate mitigation as a key focus of our government. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you so much. And as you can see, we have a great diversity in this panel. I really like the fact that we're all women. Also from the global south. Myself, I'm from Colombia, so we have like Colombia, Brazil, Kenya. So I love having like this diversity of perspectives that sometimes we don't get to have that space in this type of big conferences. So thank you so much for the space and the opportunity to speak about these. Just really quick to touch on what we do at the Institute for Human Rights and Business. We promote human rights for different industries, but specifically in the Built Environment program is how do we incorporate human rights principles in the way we think, design, finance, and construct cities and the built environment, how we make them more inclusive. So when we speak of climate resilience and adaptation, almost by definition, we have to put the most vulnerable people at the center of this decision, and that's what human rights aims to do. So our main question for today is how to make sure the voices of the vulnerable are heard when we're addressing climate resilience and adaptation. So big question, like where even to start. Maybe we can start unpacking this question a little bit, and perhaps we can start with you, Maria, maybe in 2-3 minutes each. Let's be brief. Will you tell us what are the main challenges and opportunities specifically for the youth?
So first, I think we have to change a bit of narrative. You know, youth are not only a vulnerable population, but we are also agents of change. We are being at the front lines of, climate ambition. The climate movement is actually being refreshed by youth. And I think this is so important to acknowledge. And what we need, which is a challenge but also an opportunity, is to strengthen access rights to participation, information, capacity building. So we need good information, timely information to be able to effectively be engaged in decision-making spaces. So I think that's my super key point. Access rights are crucial, are at the heart of, climate justice, and youth needs to be meaningfully engaged.
Okay. For me, I think the most important thing is to make sure that white, European, and everybody else um, are really listen, because sometimes we think we'd like to listen, but we cannot hear for truly. So I ask you to be open to understand, to listen, and to the government, I ask you to open your doors, uh, make councils, make offices, and to the philanthropy, I ask also to make sure that the money arrive in the local movements, because sometimes we are in these spaces and we don't get the reality that's going on in the local projects. So, and when I think like challenge and some opportunities that I saw when I was there in my territory, is like we need to make our legislators always to open to listeners, because we don't have investment to guarantee the access to the less privileged. So I think this is one way, and it's also why in Clima de Eleição we are working in a front of social participation, because we understand what you said. We need to build capacities and to uh, integrate our knowledges to make more people and more youth and black and poor people come together and think together to make public policies. So that's one thing that I understand. And I believe we need to improve our skills to like literacy with theoretical and practical in climate for our, our peers, something like this.
Yeah, just
Thank you so much. So in terms of opportunities and challenges, I think I'll start off with the challenges. When it comes to the challenges, one of the key things I have come to see is that we look at green or sustainable as something that the common man is not part of, or common woman for that matter. And a lot of the times when we think of sustainability, climate action, the words seem complicated, the processes seem complicated, and the conversations seem complicated. And for this reason, I feel a large set of the population is not involved in the process. And this is why then we don't have buy-in from communities. Because if a community feels, I need to have a degree, I need to be a scientist, then maybe this is not part of my problem. But if we break it down and say, if we have a cleaner street, for example, that means children won't have asthma. That's something someone can understand. And I think if we break it down to that level, more people feel they're part and parcel of that process and will then own that process and be part of the solution. So I think that is one challenge. The second challenge is, what does it mean to, for example, build green? A lot of the times we think building green means edge, means lead, means well. But essentially, that's a rating tool that gives you the certification for it. But sustainability doesn't need to be that complex. It could just mean, are you using energy efficient lighting within your home? And that then involves more people into that. In terms of opportunities, I think we are at the cusp of a lot of very, very good ideas because Africa is buzzing to involve young people in its solutions. And I think this presents an opportunity because with 75% of Africa's population being under the age of 35, if we come up with innovative, creative solutions to this process, we essentially have, if we look at Kenya, about 37 million people, 3.7 million people, sorry, joining into this just in Nairobi alone. And utilizing the youth, utilizing women presents us new options or new partnerships that we haven't thought about. And I also look at collaborations, not just from politics or government with business, but I'd also look at community-based organizations, youth groups, as grassroots solutions to problems. So I think we have an uncharted path, and what we can do is run wild with it. And for me, that just means opportunity after opportunity. So thank you for that.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for all your very valid points. I think we are reinforcing the message on like that we need to change the narrative to switch from being vulnerable groups to actually agents of change, to what you just said. And also thinking of what was mentioned in the earlier panel about the importance of universities and education and really mainstreaming sustainability, but also to your point, what is building green. And I think we have the capacity, we have some solutions on what that green means, but that attends only to the environmental sustainability. And what about social sustainability? So I think these kind of conversations really opens the door to what that social, what that S in ESG really means. So I have also wanted to add from my side, also thinking of the situations that could inhibit participation, specifically in the workers industry. So we have like workers, you spoke a bit about the tenants on the housing side, but for the workers, especially the migrant ones, some things that inhibit this participation is their migration status or the power dynamics that might exist with their employees, or a situation of oppression. And the important thing that is also missed sometimes is that it is not only a problem of construction industry itself, but also down the supply chain. So thinking of the extraction of raw materials, or even when those materials get transported, so the cargo vessels, what are the human rights implications on that. So we have to kind of open the scope and see participation that is not only about women or youth or one group, but really all the community and throughout the whole supply chain, we can say. What I'm seeing is like I wrote down some notes, and I think some of the key patterns, messages that we can say is that thinking about these different groups and all the voices that want to be heard, we can think that it's also a huge opportunity to leverage civil participation, to switch how we think about it, because we have the opportunity to improve human dignity, not only in the end product of the building, but also throughout the process, how we do it and who we engage in this decision making. But also from the perspectives of the companies, the developers, the architects. Through civic participation, we can avoid risk of the project delays or the project implementation that sometimes get delayed because we didn't account for these voices. So yeah, do we have many challenges? But I think if we just like flip the coin and look at what the huge opportunity of this could be, we can leverage it. So thank you all for your for inputs. And now, if we look a little bit about towards the future, maybe how we move forward now for these other rounds. I would like to start with you, Uli. Maybe please give us your key takeaways from this session, also from UCOB, because we know that you're leaving COB right after. So just for these few days that you are here, what were your takeaways in this particular question? And maybe some next steps from your point of view, what is needed for further civic participation from local people?
Okay. Actually, I'd like to thank the space first. I will take some notes because I made a list of these next steps. Here in Brazil, there in Brazil, we changed the government a month ago. So now we understand that integrating these groups from different realities, it is the most important thing we need to do because we can share this experience and learning with each others to making noise and to change things. So for me, the next step that federal government in Brazil can make, it is recreate the climate change forum with a young working group because we don't have this one. Um, Expand the support for more organizations to be represented in the political discussions because nowadays we don't have this too much and we need this, and open more institutional spaces for social participation. For example, creating a climate action council at the national level. In Climateleção, we are helping to create a youth climate council in São Paulo, but we also need and understand the importance to hide this, né? To up this to the national level. So I think this is the next step. And to finish, I heard a sentence today, and it's like we don't need to discuss the space. We need to, and we don't need to dispute this space. We need to expand the space. So when we get there, come and make more people fit. Because if we do this together, we are enlarge this space. So that's the thing to me.
Thank you so much, Julie. I mean, that's also a thing that I wrote down that we take, and it relates to what you were saying earlier of change the narrative. Don't dispute the space of civic participation. So sometimes people see us as a problem or like the community opposing a project, so we need to stop them, but actually harnessing their voices on how we improve social sustainability through that. So thank you. You, Nasra.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us this afternoon. It's really nice to have such a passionate kind of conversation between the four of us. On my end, I think we need to redefine the way forward. I think the first thing I would say is, as the civic society or civic sector, we're not here to make noise. What we are here is to provide the vision to drive the strategy for government and business to grow. And I think if we create a path, especially, and I'm speaking of course from a Kenyan perspective where the market is reactive, by saying that we're going to drive the agenda and then bring government on board, it means then we can also look at what should be a priority and what could potentially be an obstacle. And then collaborate with like-minded organizations and groups who we think can help us get there quicker or more efficiently, and then provide solutions that are helpful to our people. And I really like the points around ESG because I'm really passionate about ESG. I think there's no one solution to every problem. I think it's very, very important now for governments to redefine what they look at when they say investment. I think investment now should be for social needs, for environmental needs, to ensure that communities are not left behind, to ensure that any social issue is addressed as part of a core government agenda. And as civil society, we're there to ensure that it's done. If not by collaborating at the table, by pushing those conversations in forums like these. So thank you so much, I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Nasra. Yes, yes, applause that. Yeah, and I think it's very important if we're going to talk about the future and universities, we have that topic now. Yeah, that's why I wanted to close with you on this question because to me youth is so important. So what are some of the key takeaways there from your point of view with how we can further civic engagement with the youth particularly, because they're the ones that are going to be in the next 20, 30 years leading the industry.
Yeah, and we can call them the missing majority because still in decision-making spaces, youth are missing, although we have right now 1.2 billion young people under the age of 25, and they're missing in the big spaces and even negotiations. You can see not many delegations have youth within their delegations. But I wanted to flag something that is super important, and is that, the IPCC 6 assessment report presented a very big red flag, and is that maladaptation is also increasing. And this is a result of the lack of inclusivity in, adaptation, in designing the projects, in including the people on the ground. So my final remark would be to actually race to thrive, which is the logo of the campaign. We're racing to thrive. We need, climate action that is truly inclusive, that considers young people for real, and of course that has a human rights approach to it. And I think this encompasses what we were all sharing, and is the need to include people, indigenous peoples, local communities, women, children, youth, the vulnerable, the poor, the displaced, the migrants, etc. Yeah, thank you everyone.
Thank you so much, Maria. We know you have to run, so thank you for making the time in here in the panel, all you as well, leaving. But I had some takeaways that I had written for myself. Please correct me if I'm wrong, or if you want to add something, also the audience. But what I think of, some things that are like key is that this right to meaningful participation is really a cross-cutting right, as you have said. If we look at it from also my point of view, coming from the Institute for Human Rights and Business, it's a right that every single person has, and we cannot look at the civil society as separate from public, from private, from NGOs, universities, because we are all human beings. And when we finish our work of 9 to 5, after 5 we are citizens. We have a house, we pay bills, we want clean air, we want all these things that makes our cities better. So we have to look at everybody as inclusive as possible. So my thing to that point. I also think it's very important to involve the entire community of actors, as you were saying, and from the early stages of any project, any intervention, anything that we want to do in the built environment. At the Institute, we have the concept of dignity by design, which uses the built environment life cycle as a footprint to really make that emphasis that since we're thinking and planning or designing, we need to think of these participation issues. Also, something that for me is very important is the continuity. Sometimes we think of participation as just a consultation for one specific project, or like ticking the box. It's like, okay, or informing even. Sometimes there's like this information that is sent, we're building this project and that's it, and the community cannot do anything about it or say or provide feedback. So I think it's very important to have or to invest in these ongoing instruments for participation that allow us to include the people not only for one project or one policy, but really on the long term for them to participate in the whole city. I'll say, yeah, those are the key ones. I don't know if you guys want to add anything else from the audience that maybe that I'm missing. Otherwise, we'll leave it here. But thank you all so much, and thank you for the organizers and for providing this space for this very important conversation. Thank you all.